We are iGEN. You're listening to iGEN Podcast. We aim to promote world peace through sustainable self-actualization.
Welcome to another episode of iGEN Story Podcast. Now, it would normally be Pipet like you've been listening to for the last few episodes, but it's me this time. I was assigned to take care of this episode, or should I say, I was given the opportunity. Either way, I'm Rinchen and welcome once again to another episode of iGEN Story, where we discuss a variety of topics including self-development, communication, and cultural familiarization. Today, we will specifically be talking about public speaking, which is an art of communicating. I have a special guest with me for this episode. Now, public speaking is a way to communicate one's personal viewpoints to a small or a large group of people. It's one of the most essential skills to have, be it in business, leadership, management, or most importantly, politics. It includes a student asking a question in the classroom to addressing an entire nation. Of course, today we'll be discussing the former. However, public speaking can be very challenging, especially if you are to address a large group and your message is subjective in nature. Listeners can have opposing views and can be hostile towards you. So how can you make sure you convey the message and not offend a group at the same time? That may depend on various factors, including, as I mentioned earlier, the subjectivity of your topic and how open people are to be patient and to learning something new. Having said that, I'd like to point out that today we'll be looking into a person's journey and experiences as a public speaker, for which I'm excited to have my guest over. Now, I'll not be calling this an interview, even though I'd be asking a lot of questions, because I feel like the word puts an unnecessary weight on the conversation that we'll be having today, which is not in any way supposed to be political or heavy in nature. So this is me in conversation with Mr. Brian. I could introduce him, but I'd rather you listen from him as we go on about this conversation. Welcome to iGEN Story Podcast, Mr. Brian. Tell us a little bit about yourself first. I've said your name. Maybe tell us where you're from and what you do for a living.
All right. So thank you very much, Rinchen. And I'm so glad to be here in your podcast and very honored to be your first guest. So I'm a teacher by profession and a public speaker trainer and budding coach on the side. I've been in Thailand for almost 7 years. I think I'm going to be on my 7th in August, if I'm not mistaken. And my 4th year in Chiang Mai. I'm originally from the Philippines. I grew up there, I studied there, and I just moved here 7 years ago from Singapore. Yeah.
How are you liking the experience of working in a foreign land? I mean, obviously, considering the number of years you've been working in Thailand, I'm pretty sure you're having a great time, but tell us a little bit about your experience of working in Thailand.
Prior to Thailand, I used to be in Singapore for I think around 2 years, and then, moved here after. So one reason why I stayed is the people, or one of the reasons why I stayed are the people. They're just one of the kindest that I've met. Also, the food. They have like a lot of variety and different flavors. They just explode in your mouth, and the concoction of all the flavors is something that everyone should experience. I think that's why there's a lot of Thai restaurants in every corner of the world. Yeah, also living in a different country is a great experience for you to know different people of different background, from different culture. I've met not only Thais, but since Thailand is like a hub for foreigners and for digital nomads, especially here in Chiang Mai. So I've met a lot of nationalities, which has expanded my knowledge of different culture and also my understanding of the world.
Okay, now in your introduction, you said that you've been a speaking trainer. Now, I would like to delve into the main topic that we're here for. So, talk us through a little bit about your experience speaking to large audiences in general. When did it start, and what was the experience like?
I started speaking in front of the public when I was on the 6th grade, I think, in primary school. That was for our primary school election. So I was nominated to be I forgot what position that was. But
Did you win?
I did, to cut the long story short. But prior to that, we were asked to introduce ourselves and to tell the people what we're running for and about the position. So I wasn't running for the top position at the time. So I was the third or the fourth one to present myself. And those before me just said their name and their class and their position. That was all. So I found that too boring. So during my time, when it was my time, I told my name, and then I also presented my plans for the office. But it was a turning point in my public speaking career, because that was my first experience and also the funniest. So when I introduced myself, I said "Good morning, my fellowship classmates," and then they were all giggling and some were laughing, and I didn't really bother, and I just continued speaking. And then going back to the classroom, we were queuing up. Back to the classroom, my classmates were saying "Hi, fellowship, hi, fellowship." And I didn't really mind it. I said, okay, maybe they were just saying it again because it was different from those who introduced themselves. They just said, my name is. But I started mine with "Good morning, my fellowship classmates." And I just later found out that actually that was entirely wrong in grammatical sense. So it should be "Good morning, my fellow students." I never knew that there was a mistake until somebody actually told me. So I said, oh my gosh, that was very embarrassing. I was in front of the entire 1st to 6th grade classes. But that didn't deter me to stop public speaking. Actually, I took that as a challenge to continue speaking and to improve myself further. So I'm not sure. I think it depends on each person. Somebody could have been traumatized by the experience and would just stop, doing public speaking. But I took that as an opportunity, or maybe it's just in my personality to love public speaking. That's why I continued. So yeah, that's how I started. And I like joining school events where you have to perform on stage, whether to speak or to perform. So that also added to my confidence in facing a large number of people. And it's just later on, after university, where I actually discovered that public speaking itself is an art where you can develop yourself more about it. And that's when I decided to venture into public speaking.
Now you said, as you started speaking in public, some students were giggling over something you said. Like that, what other challenges may a public speaker face? Obviously, being ridiculed by some members in the audience, but what are some challenges that people may face?
I think the biggest challenge would be when people actually stop listening. So they're just sitting there, but they have shut off their communication with you. So they shut off their connection with you, and you already failed because you can't get your message across. And the second thing, speaking of that, is how we can, as speakers, actually get our message across. It sounds as easy as it is, but actually there are some techniques on how you can bring your message effectively to your listeners. And also one challenge for beginners and even for professionals and for long-time speakers would also still be the fear of being on stage. I still get that fear even before I start or on the first few minutes of speaking. I think it's natural, it's needed, it's important. But the important thing there is you know how to handle that fear. And of course, on the technical issue, challenge could be if you have slides and then it suddenly got disrupted, or the microphone stopped working, or there's some audio noises or interferences or some echo during your speech. So if you're a professional speaker or an experienced one, you would know how to handle these things because you have actually anticipated that it could happen, or you have experienced that before. So those are the possible challenges that they could face. And if worst comes to worst, some audience would actually like stand up and leave the hall. Or worse than that, they will like really make sound or ridicule you. And I hope our audience and listeners are more culturally polite not to do that. But yeah.
So yeah, I'll get to that in a while. But before that, I'd like to ask you. You said you get nervous. So how do you deal with being nervous right before going onto the stage? Is there like a mantra, or how do you prepare yourself? Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a mantra, and each speaker has their own mantra, and it's maybe secret on how to deal with it. Okay, I'll share mine with you.
Sure, please do.
So I also share this in my trainings. There are several ways where you can actually feel confident a few minutes before speaking. So I think one of that, and it's a common technique, is to do the Superman pose. Have you seen the Superman movie or the Wonder Woman movie? So when you hear the word Superman or Wonder Woman poster, you would actually see them standing with their hands on their waist, and with their chin up. So on the backstage, you can do that pose for a while, and then take deep breaths while doing it. So I've been to one training where they say that your thoughts dictate your actions, and your actions dictate your thoughts. So in this way, when you do the Superman pose, which we call the confidence pose, then it's your action that dictates your thoughts. So you're doing the confidence pose, and your mind will actually think that you're confident and you're ready. And taking deep breaths also could give your brain more oxygen, so at least it could function better. That's on the scientific side. And on the psychological side, just think that the audience love you. Think that what you'll say today will impact their lives. Think that your speech has value to your listeners. So that way, with that positive thinking, you can actually tell yourself that, I'll be there, and I'm going to say something that they need, that they want, that's going to be of value to them. So I'm going to do great. Fear comes in when you're not prepared. And secondly, when you think that people might not like you, or people might not see some importance with your topic or with your speech. So reverse that, and then it could help boost your confidence and lessen your fear.
Oh, that's a great tip. I think everyone should try Wonder Woman, Superman pose before
but
they.
Not the Spider-Man pose.
All right. Yeah, definitely not the Spider-Man pose. So yeah, just a while ago you said that some people can be mean while you're speaking. Has that ever happened to you? Did you ever get heckled by a member in the audience, or someone just yelled out at you while you were speaking in public? Or
luckily never. Yeah, luckily I've never experienced that. Maybe because I speak, in a professional place. Yeah, normally I can just see those instances in concerts, a more public gathering. But in terms of public speaking, most of our audience are professionals, like decent people. So should I say that only decent people wanted to actually really go and listen to a speech? Yeah, but speakers could be anywhere. They could be with any audience. But luckily for me, it has never happened, and I hope it won't.
As you are a teacher by profession, so it can also happen in a classroom. So would you say that public speaking and being a teacher is similar, or are they not?
That's interesting. I've been teaching for 6-7 years, and I've been doing public speaking for around 3 to 4 years, and I've seen some similarities, like they can both boost your confidence because you're facing to a group of people each time. But the only difference with teaching is your students are familiar with you, you're familiar with them. So with that familiarity, there's like lesser fear. Also, a similarity is you both need mastery of the subject matter. So that when you teach, you must know what you're teaching. At the same time, when you speak, you must know also what you're speaking. For the differences, I think they're like what I said. Your audience in public speaking could normally be different each time, so you have to adjust. There's a different attack on the way you address, the way you speak in public speaking rather than in teaching. So I can say they both complement each other. As a teacher and as a public speaker, I use some techniques I learned in public speaking and teaching, and I use also some techniques which I learned in teaching, especially in organizing your lessons to public speaking.
Yeah, I agree, because I feel like public speaking is more one way. You're the only one who's talking. Whereas in the classroom, it's like learning takes place, when students ask questions, things like that. So since in both experiences, you need enough knowledge about the content. So what would you say is more important? Is it the content or the way you deliver your message? So this question, by the way, comes from my sister.
Oh, okay. Hi to your sister. What's her name?
She's Jimmy.
Hi, Jimmy. Thanks for your question. Content or delivery? Of course, they're both important. But if I were to choose one, I would go for content, because people wanted to learn something. They wanted something fresh. They wanted to get something from you. So there are actually, way back, we can see people just talk on TV, even though they really look so boring. We've seen people talk on stage with like no body language or no vocal variety. And I'm sorry, but some of the teachers also actually like do some boring lectures in class. Also, some professionals, like experts in the field of science, or even in this COVID situation, we've seen a lot of scientists and doctors talk about COVID and what it is all about. They are not trained in public speaking, but their content is really, accurate and something fresh, and they really have something to share. So I could say that content is more important than delivery, but people need to be really interested on what you're saying for them to be glued and listen to you for a long time. So it depends on how old you are, but the moment you reach the second minute and there's still nothing interesting that comes out of your mind, people would suddenly shut their ears and then you're gone. So that's how delivery helps content.
Okay, which brings us to the next question. Obviously, public speaking is a skill. It's safe to say. I think it's a talent even. So do you think it's acquired with experience over a period of time? Or do you have to be born with certain set of skills or talent to be a good public speaker?
Mm-hmm. I don't think you need to be born to be a public speaker. Yeah, like you said, it's a skill, and every skill can be learned, can be trained, can be honed to be better. So what needs there is the willingness to learn, and then the perseverance to continue learning to master it. Nothing impossible for you to learn a new skill like public speaking.
Thank you. That's great. I hope nobody loses hope if they're not really good at public speaking. You can hone your skills over time. how do I prepare myself to be ready to speak at any given time? Like, for example, we have seminars and meetings in schools, and it's not just speech. And then suddenly, if the speaker comes in front of me and asks me a question, I'm never ready. I'm either sleepy or thinking about food. So how do I prepare myself to speak unprepared, like off the cuff right away?
Well, in that given situation, of course, it's very difficult because you were not paying attention. And you must pay attention.
That's tip number one. Pay attention, guys.
And to the speaker, so at least if you're asked to ask a question or to say something, then you know you know where he's coming from. And now that you have the background of what the talk is about, then just say what's on your mind. What just answer his question, and just feel it like you're talking to him one-on-one and you're not in a conference or in a seminar, and just ignore the people around you, because I think that's where the fear comes from, being in the middle of an audience. So just ignore that they're there and then just focus on the speaker. So overall, to leave a great impression to your listeners, you gotta be professional. It means you know what you're saying. You gotta be engaging. You know how to say it. And then it should be easily understood by your audience. So that way, I'm sure you're gonna leave a great mark and impression to your listeners.
Well, that brings us to the end of our conversation today. I hope that was helpful in providing some tips to be a better speaker. Keep reaching higher and you shall be there. Thank you so much, Mr. Brian, for being with us today, and thank you everyone for listening.
iGEN, International Generation. Grow with us, go with iGEN.